Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Welcome to our Parents as Partners and Parent Panelist webinar. We are so excited to welcome you guys and your family members to campus this coming fall. Before we get started, my name is Anna Herbert. I am one of our admissions counselors here at MSU before, so you may have seen me at MSU Fridays, meeting with your students on campus, or potentially at college fairs or their own high school all around the country. Without further ado, and before I hand it out to the real stars of the show, the current Bobcat parents and our fabulous Dean of Students, Matt Caires, couple quick housekeeping tips for you guys. So first of all, welcome, just like I said. If any of you are having any difficulty logging in, hearing this, here's some tech help information. You can always call in. And then lastly, we are going to be, as I get ahead of myself here, we are going to be utilizing something called Slido during this presentation. To access this, you're going to have to open it yourself independently. I will launch it in just a moment. However, to get here, you're going to go to Apps at the bottom corner of your screen, select that, click on the Slido question right there where it's the S with the green circle in the background. And then this is where you can ask questions. We do have our admissions staff of counselors on hand here ready to answer all of your questions throughout this presentation. Without further ado, I am going to turn this presentation over to our Dean of Students. That is Matt Caires. Happy to have you here, and take it away, Matt.
Okay, I'm going to start all over, and deep thanks to our admissions staff who clicked this important button called unmute. That's new for me, the unmute button. So glad I'm unmuted now, and just want to say a quick thank you to all the parents who have joined. Deeply appreciate admissions putting this on, and as I said earlier that none of you could hear, my name is Matt Caires, Dean of Students. I've been in this role the last 15 years at MSU, and I've really have had an amazing journey here at MSU as we've really embraced this idea that parents are important. Parents are partners. In fact, I think parents are some of the best resources we have in order for students to get help. And we think a little differently about parents than what you'll find at a lot of schools in many ways because our students have changed. Even in the last 5 to 10 years, our students have changed. And we know our students talk to their parents a lot. So it's important to me that we partner with parents and share information. The things that we're worried about, thinking about, concerned about, or suggesting, I want our parents to know about those things, the university resources and beyond. Because if our parents can help tell our students about those resources, it really helps us do our job to ensure student success. So again, grateful for all of you tuning in and grateful for admissions for hosting. And I'm going to give you a little snapshot. Every year during the summer, we invite parents to join their students for summer orientation. And one of the great things I get to do is I get to teach Parent 101, University Life 101 for parents. And we call it Parents as Partners. And I'm going to share my screen really quickly. I hope that worked. Hopefully you can see me. And I am going to start our slideshow. Yeah, this is the traditional slideshow I give. It's a bit of a condensed version tonight, just for your well-being at home. You don't sit through an hour-long lecture, but I'm going to share some insights on the things I talk to parents about as we really get into the important work of transitioning to school. I talk about the parents needing a guide. So it's for some of you out there, it might be 20 or 30 years since you've been on a college campus. And again, lots has changed since we were in school. So yeah, I want to talk a little bit about history of university life, how that history, times have changed, and the rules and the responsibilities our students have as schools have evolved, the resources we provide on campus. And then if enough time we have tonight, I think we'll do a good job. I'll give some advice. I mentioned 15 years working in this role at Montana State. It's my 30th year working on a college campus. And so seen lots of students succeed, a handful of students fail, and want to give some advice. Some of the things that if I was in your shoes right now, thinking about a student going off to college in about the short 8 months, some of the things that would be on my mind if I was in your shoes. So I will start. Typically, I recognize if you're tuning in tonight, you probably have an A student. I guess this crowd out there tonight, you're the parents of the A students. Why do I think that? Because you're here. And so I typically give a little bit of quiz. I want to know what these parents know about. Yes, Charlie?
We just have to click.
Okay, it sounds like we're not sharing yet. I'm getting lots of technical support here. Let me know if that doesn't work. So now I think we are officially sharing screens, but I typically, in starting this lecture, I talk a little bit about how we've changed the evolution of American higher education. But the pop quiz, of course, is what was the first college? Yeah, I mean, I'm curious, and I won't ask you because you're probably on mute. But what was the first college in North America? And when I ask the question, I get lots of answers. Some people think it's William and Mary, and even though that's a very old school, if you look up Wikipedia, Wikipedia will say the first college in North America, Harvard College, 1636. And what's fascinating about that fact is that's almost 400 years ago. We've been in the business of higher education in North America for over 400 years. That's 150 years before we were even a country, really. So we've been in the business for a very long time. And if we look back, what did colleges look like? When it was the 17th century, colleges were small. They were religiously affiliated. They were all men, male students, male professors. We were founded under the teaching model, the English model, if you will. And you don't see the research model of universities creep into American higher education really till the 20th century. And yeah, we were worried about things. 400 years ago, there was somebody who was a headmaster or a dean of students or some sort of role on college campuses that were dealing with student life issues. Well, what were those issues 400 years ago? It was convincing students to go to class, listening to the rules, and at times drinking too much. College students have been drinking too much for a very long time. They were dealing with this problem at Harvard College in the 17th century, and in some ways, we're still struggling with that same topic almost 400 years later. And when students broke the rules 400 years ago, what did we do? We disciplined them. Well, discipline has changed. Yeah, we used to legally have the ability to flog students, beat students, spank students, and boxing their ears in. The headmasters kneeling in front of the headmaster and having your ears boxed in. Well, campus discipline has changed a lot since the 17th century. And why is that? It's in many ways because our legal responsibilities have changed. Our legal relationships with students have changed. For the lion's share of our history in American higher education, our legal relationship was called in loco parentis. This was literally in the place of the parent. And in loco parentis basically said, look, if you bring your son to the college campus, the university is in charge like a parent would be. And you see this back in the legal literature, 1765, Sir William Blackstone, basically said, yeah, the child is a child, it's not an adult. We turn the child over to the college or university, and they basically have the same power to correct behavior that a parent would. In loco parentis started a very long time ago. It was sort of this notion, well, that's how college campuses should be managed. And that legal idea continued into the 18th and the 19th and even the 20th century. Did students have rights under in loco parentis? Well, not at all. They were considered, in the eyes of the law, they were children, and they were in custody of the university, which is where we get lots of interesting traditions of college campuses, having curfews and dress codes and certain things and traditions that the university as freshmen you have to do. Some might even call some of those traditions hazing today, but there were no rights. The only rights students had, it was to basically listen to whatever the campus rules happened to be. And there's some legal work here. I bring some legal cases to the table because it kind of shows, how this played out on college campuses. And one of my favorite cases, I talk about Gott versus Berea College. Berea College is still, very active college today down in Kentucky. And 100 years ago, students at Berea College were doing what students did at the time. They were sneaking out of their dorms and going to the nearby tavern. And the tavern owner, of course, enjoyed this, and the students enjoyed this. And then the Berea College officials found out about this, and they said, "Well, no, Berea College students, you don't have rights. You can't do that. That breaks our rules." And so Berea College was clear that no tolerance policy. Students sneak out of the dorm, and if they go to the bar, you're going to get kicked out of school. And there were lots of folks who were against this policy. The students were upset, but probably the person the most upset was the guy who owned the bar. His name was Gott. And Gott ended up saying, "Look, this violates my commercial interests. Berea College can't forbid their students coming here and spending their money." And he brings a lawsuit. It goes up to the Kentucky Supreme Court. And in 1913, the Supreme Court says, "Look, Gott, you're wrong. Colleges stand in loco parentis concerning the physical and moral welfare and the mental training of their pupils. And to that end, the college can make any rule or regulation for the government or the betterment of their student that a parent would." And so, Berea College, you sneak out, you go to the bar, you get kicked out of school. And why? The in loco parentis, the law of the land. So that was the law of the land in many ways from the beginning of American higher education until we really get into the 1960s. And why did it change? Well, it changed slowly. It started evolving, and then suddenly, really through another court case. But the university system, the American higher education, really started changing around the 20th century in many ways because the role of the university had changed. We again, the research mission creeps in as we were entering the 20th century, and there were concerns about the Industrial Revolution and the growing tensions in Europe and all this new technology with internal, automobiles and planes and different types of weapons. The federal government was really concerned about this. And so the federal government looked around and said, where can we get this type of innovation to keep up with the countries in Europe? And in many ways, they looked to the research university. They started pumping lots of money, federal money, into research universities to do this work. And when that changed, when professors started getting research dollars to do more research, faculty just naturally started doing less work directly with students in a sense of the after hours work, the late night work, the parenting work, the teaching of character, the living with students, the dining with students, all that work. Sort of the faculty started stepping off that stage, and you really see the advent of the staff member. Faculty generally ran colleges and universities until around the 20th century, and then we started professionalizing staff roles to come in and manage these kind of things for students. So the college started shifting, and the role of the college started shifting. And we see for the first time at the beginning of the 20th century women going to college. And that was a major change. There were different majors we needed. We needed different dorm rooms, different dining facilities, different rules to manage the behavior between our female students and our male students. And so coeducation was a shift, and intercollegiate athletics was a shift. We started, doing more and more student activities where students would leave the campus. They would travel down the road. The football team at Harvard would go play the football team at Yale. And as student activities went further and further away, it became harder and harder to parent those activities or to police those activities. College fraternities became extremely popular around the turn of the century, and as a result, college sororities. So the students started moving further and further away. Their living arrangements, we were no longer able to manage their behavior as closely because they were no longer living on campus. So lots of changes around the 20th century, and then whammo, we hit this depression. We have a major depression, and in many ways, we pull out of that depression because we have the Second World War, and we fight the war, and lots of students leave college campuses. They leave the college campus, they do their duty, they go overseas and they fight the war. And once the war gets over, what do those students do? Well, the federal government was ready and said, look, we want our returning GIs to get an education. And so students came back to college campuses. And it really was that idea that these older students were returning. And in the 1940s and really even into the 50s, college students started really pushing against this notion of the college as the parent, in loco parentis, disciplining us, having these sort of archaic rules or dogmatic rules about discipline and when you could be in your residence hall, who can you associate with. And so older students started asking for new freedoms, and students pressed and pressed, and in many ways continued to press through speaking out. And one of those moments in our history, one of the key moments, one of the key lawsuits that many people don't know about was this Dixon case, Dixon versus Alabama, a case that really changes everything in many ways in terms of student rights on campus. Dixon was a college student at Alabama State College and was in association with a number of other college students, 6 African-American young men who decide they're going to, start the civil rights movement. They were going to stage a protest. They were going to go into a local diner and decide to sit where traditionally only white people could sit. And people were upset. There was a small riot that ensued. The 6 students were arrested. And in many ways, they had to deal with the criminal justice system. But in another interesting moment, their college, Alabama State College, kicked them out, wrote them a letter and said, for behavior unbecoming a student at Alabama State College, we're going to kick you out. And no hearing, no notice, no chance to appeal that decision. And those 6 students, they brought a lawsuit and said, no, this seems wrong. This seems, in fact, un-American. We were demonstrating our right to associate. We were demonstrating our right to speak out. And before the college should, publicly funded schools should discipline us, shouldn't we have some due process as a part of it? So they bring a lawsuit, and this lawsuit goes up to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, and the Court of Appeals found in favor of the plaintiffs and said, college students don't give up their constitutional rights when they go to college. And they're adults. They have certain rights under the Constitution as adults. So the Dixon case, a really important moment in our history, 1961, in loco parentis falls. I mean, it was this slow and steady progression, but in 1961 it falls. And universities that aren't necessarily agents of change, it took us a long time to change this idea that we could no longer discipline students as children, that we were really working with a population of adults. And you see this idea of students as adult really taking off and gaining momentum in the 60s, the 70s, and even into the 80s. Congress gets into the fray and passes a law. 1974, Congress passes the Family Education Right to Privacy Act and said very clearly, college students are adults and as a result have certain rights to privacy. That means colleges can no longer, and again, this is a law over 50 years ago, colleges cannot share grades with parents. Colleges can't share discipline records with parents. When students get in trouble, the college can't talk about that publicly because as adults, they have a right to privacy. We changed the voting age in many ways. It used to be 21 to be able to vote. In the 70s, we dropped it to 18. In many states in the 70s, you could drink. It was legal to drink at 18 or 19 years old. And college campuses were in a really interesting predicament in the 1960s and 70s because we see the civil rights movement. We see the free speech movement. We see the war in Vietnam and students, protesting. In many ways, young people protesting in the 60s and 70s. So a lot of those protests were happening on college campuses. And in the same breath, we were being told by Congress and by the courts, well, as students protest and disrupt the university's life and activities, if you will, colleges, you can't discipline them. They're adults. They have a right to do these things. And universities, in many ways, disengaged from student life issues. We said, they're adults. We're told we can't do anything, so we're not going to manage this. And we gave students more freedom. Students demanded it. The court said you needed to. Freedom to be adults. And when we gave students more freedom, there's just no question what happened. They took it. They took the freedom. And we see this idea of colleges turning into Animal House. Students start drinking, and there's no monitoring of the drinking. Students start drinking to not just have a good time. And I mentioned alcohol has been part of the culture on college campuses for a long time. But in the 70s, it becomes different. It becomes drinking to incapacitation, to get drunk so drunk that you black out. And it becomes almost this idea of rite of passage. And when students start drinking and all these activities, and the university we weren't there to help manage these activities, yeah, students started getting injured. And in many ways, students started being killed. It was a really difficult time in the late 70s and early 80s on college campuses. And we stood by, the university officials in charge, and we just kind of watched. We were bystanders. We didn't really have a model because in many ways, for the last 350 years, the model was clear. Students were children and we could manage them. We could give them rules and we could discipline them when they violated the rules. Well, it got out of control, and it got out of control pretty quickly. And in the 80s and in the 90s, really the pendulum starts swinging back to this idea that we need rules. Students, they can't act like adults without some direct guidance. And by the way, if you have rules, you got to enforce those rules. And so we start talking about conduct codes. It's really the first time there was a bona fide code of conduct. That movement really started in the mid-1980s. And we started talking about, well, you have rights, and again, we're clear, rights under the Constitution, but students have certain responsibilities as well. They should go to class, and they should be on time, and they shouldn't cheat their way through college. And if they drink and cause a disruption, they can be held accountable. We can suspend students. We just need to do that through due process, and we needed to bake that process into the university's policy. So we start seeing real changes. And in the 80s, lots of folks, again, were concerned about behavior on college campuses because of the bad behavior in the 60s and 70s in many ways, and the injuries and deaths that followed. We changed the drinking age. We said, look, this isn't working out. Young people need to have older responsibilities in order to drink. And so as a country, we changed the drinking age. I always remind folks, the last state to change the drinking age, when I ask the question, parents always chime in, it's Wisconsin. Well, they drink a lot in Wisconsin, but it's not Wisconsin. Montana, well, they drink a lot in Montana too, but it's not Montana either. It's Wyoming. Wyoming was the last state, 1988, to change the drinking age. A lot of reasons why Wyoming was the last, but that really wasn't that long ago. I mean, that was a generation ago that we finally as a country decided to change the drinking age. And in many ways, we're still struggling with what does that mean, especially as the young person transitions to college at 18 years old. Well, how are we going to enforce that law? It's not just a university policy, it's actually state law. We changed FERPA, in the 80s and then later in the 90s, we changed FERPA. And in many ways, because of the fact that the drinking age had changed, we needed some ability to say, look, mom and dad, we can't keep you in the dark. If your son or daughter continues to drink or do drugs or do other things that are deeply concerning in terms of behavior, the federal government gave us some permission in limited ways to actually communicate those things to parents. And I'll talk in a moment just what we do here at Montana State with talking to parents in times of crisis. But this idea of having conduct codes and managing behaviors, some folks called this the new in loco parentis, that we were back in the business of parenting and disciplining students. And I remind folks, no, we're not. We can't parent students as 17,000 students. We can't parent them. In many ways, we don't have to because most of them have had great parents along the way. But our job is to help facilitate their success. And we do that through a series of things and helping them be successful and understanding what the rules of engagement are and how to adhere to the rules and frankly, how to be safe. So where does it leave us? Where does it leave us today? The modern university, 2026, how does this all work? we've adopted at MSU this idea that parents are simply just partners. We include parents in almost everything we do. We see parents are an incredibly important constituent, and we do lots of things with parents as a result. I happen to be a product of two great parents, and I think there are great parents all over the place. We poke a little bit of fun at parents occasionally, the idea of a helicopter parent or a bulldozer parent, but and you're out there. We know you are. Someone listening right now, you are too. But in general, most parents are actually really thoughtful, and they cooperate and they partner with us in times of need, in times of crisis, mostly in times of celebration. Most of our students enjoy tremendous success when they come here, and we get to celebrate with parents, especially on that really important day that we call graduation. And we'll talk more about that. So who are our students today? Are they adults? I always ask this question. Later in August, who's going to bring to us this put together, minted, financially stable, makes decisions on their own, bona fide adult? And then all the parents laugh at that. But then I turn around and say, well, if they're not adults, are they children? Are they children? And, we admit at 18, even at 17, they're not kids. They're not children. They're something else. And my single favorite, scholar, researcher, developmental psychologist is Jeffrey Arnett. If you want to do a little homework on this, between now and August, pick up a copy of Jeffrey Arnett, Emerging Adulthood. This is the guy that for the last 30 years has been studying young people and as they emerge into adulthood. And he's got lots of good advice working with 18 to 25-year-olds in order to help them grow and continue to gain adult skills. What are some of the things that universities can do? What are some of the things parents can do to help them in their journey? Some of those things is, frankly, we have resources. The university does lots of things to support our students through this university experience, but in many ways, this incredible journey into becoming adults. My office in the Student Union building, I hope you get a chance to come this summer. We'll talk a lot about what we do in Dean of Students and how we work with students. We do lots of different things, but ultimately, it's the place that we help students learn and grow, and especially in times when they might make poor choices. Our students occasionally break the rules. That's not a surprise. We have a conduct code, and when students break the rules, we try to teach them what we expect. We meet with students. We sanction students. So we give students opportunities to learn from their choices, and especially around alcohol and drugs. If you join us this summer, and if you are a parent here this fall, you're going to hear me talk a lot about alcohol and drugs. In many ways, some of the most dangerous things our students do is in association with alcohol and drugs. And some of our students never drink or never do illegal drugs. Some of our students do a lot of drinking and have illegal drugs in their life. And most of our students are somewhere in between. But we do a lot of education about this in many ways, because when they come to school, they're experimenting and they're pushing the envelope. They're learning and growing. And we want to make sure they don't do anything that hurts themselves or hurts someone else during their journey through school. So we will be talking a lot about what we expect with alcohol and other drugs. But our conduct code doesn't stop there. We have lots of rules at the university, and a big part of my job is to educate our students about those rules, what we expect, and how it works, and the consequences for violating them. I'm really clear with our students. If you commit sexual intercourse without consent, on campus or off, we are going to remove you as a student. If you are violent towards someone else, if you hurt someone else, if you bring a weapon into a residence hall, there are things you can do the very first time that will get you removed from school. And again, we do this under the guise of due process. We have lots of due process baked into our system, but there are still consequences for violations of our conduct code. And lots of partners that help me with this. We have a great civil rights office here that helps me manage discrimination and harassment claims. We have, I think, one of the best police departments on a college campus anywhere in the country. Our police chief and the patrol, they very much see themselves like I do, which are we're educators. And that doesn't mean they won't give tickets or arrest students if need be. But in many ways, they have a very special job in the police department helping students to learn and grow. And so a great team here that helps ensure our students' safety. We comply with the Clery Act, and you might not know about this, but if you don't, quick search on annual security reports. Any school your student is looking at, you should be looking at their annual security report. Every school in the country is required to publish this. It's a collection of our crime data. And in many ways, yeah, it's a one-stop place. You can find it on our website. Just basically go to the website and search annual security report. It'll come right up. But it's a great way to learn about the programs we have, the safety things we do, and of course the crime that happens to occur. I tell parents it's a really safe place. MSU is a really safe place. But we do have crime, and most of our crime is against property. Occasionally, we have crimes against people, and there are certain things that we'll be offering to parents throughout the year on things that we worry about, some lessons students need to know about in order to, again, to protect themselves. In many ways, parents were better situated for this because we just have more life experience. We need to help coach students to gain some of those skills because college, in many ways, you can protect yourself from getting your bike stolen, your computer stolen, or something happening at a party. But the learning curve is quick, and we need parents' help to help teach those lessons along the way. I talked a lot. That's about 30 minutes worth of information. I'm just going to rattle through some quick tips. I'm going to give you more information about this when you join us this summer. But yeah, a couple things to think about in order right now in January before your student is here in August. Come join us come join us for move-in weekend. You know, when I moved into my college campus experience, you know, my parents dropped me off. My dad gave me $20 and said, "We'll see you at Thanksgiving." And 30 years later, lots has changed, and move-in weekend has changed. It's kind of a wonderful experience. We want our parents to be here. We want them to be here the whole weekend and enjoy all the good things we have. We have this incredible first meal and programs going on. The weather in Bozeman is always great. But then after the weekend, the next tip is go home. You know, it's time to say goodbye, and it's easy to say in January. It's actually really hard to do. The idea of my kids going to college, I mean, nothing will make me more emotional than thinking my kids go to college. I'm fortunate I still have 10 years in order to do that. But yeah, go away. Most of our parents understand that. A couple parents don't. There's always one or two that hang out longer. It's typically a mom. It's typically not a dad. It's typically a mom and typically a mom of a son. Mom wants to make sure that Johnny gets to class on Monday morning, and you know she'll walk him to class, and then since she's there, she might even sit in class and maybe take a few notes. And you know, a lot of times I get those phone calls. You know, the professor will call me and say, "What do I do? I got this mom in class taking notes for her son," and that's where, "Mom, I'm going to call you, and I'm going to say it's time to go home." And so we'll cross that bridge if we need to in August. But yeah, come for move-in weekend, go away afterwards, but then ultimately come back. And one little secret I'm letting out of the bag right now, October 23rd through 25th is Parent Family Weekend. That's not official. It's not on any website. It's not official until we say it's official, but I have a pretty good sense that's going to be that weekend. Why is that important? That was a small gift I wanted to give to you. If you think your student's going to be here in the fall, you want to come to Parents Weekend, the one thing you can do right now is reserve your hotel. Hotels will sell out that weekend. They'll sell out at least a month ahead of time. So get your hotel rooms if you want to come, and you should come. The weather's always great. There's always fun things to do. We always have a football game and lots of other activities. So plan to come to Parent Family Weekend. And yeah, again, we have lots of time on the clock to talk about this, but I need parents' help. I need your help to ask really good, hard questions about how students are using their time. What are they doing with their free time? Are they going to class? Are they showing up on time? Are they meeting their professors? Are they joining a club? Are they spending time around others? Are they socializing with alcohol? I mean, all these things that I'm going to need your help with in the fall. And one of the ways to do that is to read our emails. This partnership I talk about is really predicated on communication. And I'll be sending emails to parents all year, twice a month, 3 times a month, just on the things I'm thinking about, I'm worried about, and again, suggestions on how to help support your students. So read our emails and Yeah, eating ramen builds character. I'll tell you lots about how money, in many ways, this generation of college students, they're living a lifestyle that 30 years ago was pretty, very pretty different than when we went to school 30 years ago, and how money, in many ways, can actually not help them in these situations. So I'll tell you more about that in June. And let them complain. Let the students, I hope our students do complain a little bit about how hard it is, how difficult life is. It's a huge transitioning, moving out of your home and moving into a college dorm and interacting with a roommate that you don't know and having these rules and an RA and, organic chemistry. I mean, college is hard and it's supposed to be hard. And, my advice to parents is let the students struggle. Let them struggle through this. Because again, those skills that they're going to gain through the struggle, though, that's good stuff. That's the stuff they need later in life that's going to help them get ready for the next step after school. Bring a bike. I mean, one thing I'd love your support on, I'm not sure our first year students need cars. If it was up to me, I would say no student should bring a car their freshman year. We do allow students to do so, but it's a policy I frankly disagree with. And I think parents, if students get good grades, if they have a successful freshman year and they get a 3.5 GPA, I think students can earn a car and bring a car their sophomore year. When students have cars, they use them and they leave campus. And in many ways, it's great to have a car because you get to go hiking and fishing and go skiing and do all the things we love to do in Bozeman. But their freshman year, I want students on campus. I want them studying and being serious students. So be thoughtful about setting up some parameters around bringing a car. And students need to go to class. You can help me with that, getting that message home that students always need to go to class. They need to meet their professors. They need to get a job. They need to join a club. There's lots of things students should be doing to optimize their time and their success here. And again, we still have lots of time on the clock, but those are the themes and the ideas I'm going to be suggesting to you all fall semester in order to help our students be successful. Again, you'll hear more about this. We have a whole parents program. Our parents matter. We have people in the Dean of Students office, including myself. It's part of our job to support our parents. So when you call us, we're going to get back to you. When you call us, there is no AI chat box when you call the Dean of Students office. It's us. We have a small team of folks that answer the phone, and when you call us, we're going to help you. So please call us. Please email us. Use our website. We have a great website, montana.edu/parents. A lot of the resources I talked about tonight and so many more are located on that website. So this is my contact information, my phone number, and my email. Reach out if there's things I said tonight that you want to learn more about, disagree with, agree with, whatever you happen to be. Send me an email and I'll get back to you. It is me. There is no assistant that answers my email. Every email you'll get from me, either now or this fall, I'll be the one answering it. So I can't wait. And that's just my commitment to you. We're committed to parents, and we're committed to parents in many ways because you're so important to help us to make sure your students are successful. And at that, I'm going to take a deep breath and a break. I invited three of my favorite parents. I get to know parents, you can imagine, really well. I have three of my favorites who are joining us tonight as in terms of a parent panel. Charlie, if you can hear me, I don't know how to bring them up on the screen, but I'm going to rely on you to bring our panelists in and so that they can introduce themselves and take it away. They're the experts out there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, guys. And thank you, Matt. That was absolutely amazing. But now it's time for kind of the stars of our show, our current Bobcat parents. We do have some questions that were submitted by parents and family members attending this session ahead of time that we would love to run through with you guys. Before we kick things off, though, I would love to give our future Bobcat parents a chance to get to know you guys a little bit. If each of you wouldn't mind just sharing your name, where you are joining us from, and if you wouldn't mind also sharing, let's do what year your student is and what they're studying. Maybe let's just go in alphabetical order. Brad, do you want to kick us off and then go on to Leslie and then Susan?
Yeah, happy to, Anna. Thanks for having me. My name is Brad Freitag. I live in California. We have a home up in Montana. Our son is a business major, Fletcher, and he is in his sophomore year. And I'm delighted to be here. I love engaging with the MSU community. So thank you for having me.
Great, thank you.
Hi, I am Leslie Meyer from Edina, Minnesota, but actually also joining right now from Montana. I have a graduate in May of 2023, and he was a civil engineering major. And then I have a daughter who is currently a senior, and I always have to write down her major. She is cell biology and neuroscience. So she's on a pre-med track, um, and that is what she does. So I love being here, and I love giving information to all the prospective parents. So welcome.
That's amazing, Leslie. Hi, everybody. I'm Susan Aiken. I am joining from Bozeman as well. So my husband and I have actually lived here for a little over a year. Our son Wyatt is a sophomore. He is an ag business / ranch management, still trying to make his decision major. So glad to be here as well.
Great. Well, thank you so much, guys. And without further ado, let's just get into it. Starting off, Susan, if you don't mind, I will just swing it right back to you. Would you mind please sharing, as a parent, is there anything specific about Montana State that really stuck out to you or made an impression on you?
Sure. Yeah. When we were out of state, we did not live in Montana when Wyatt applied to Montana State. When he got in, he's probably like, why did you, we are not helicopter parents, Matt. I don't think we are. Matt knows us pretty well, but we did not come here just to follow him to school. We love Bozeman, but we were attracted by the big opportunities of the university. It has so many resources. It feels like a big university, and at the same time feels like a very small, personal, everyone knows your name kind of place. And we've really seen that come to life in the last 2 years year and a half that he's been there. Wyatt has amazing professors that he has access to. So he can go contact them anytime. He can check in. He can make sure he gets the information he needs. The school is surrounded by a town that is committed to the school. Bozeman lives for Montana State. And so any business in town, all the families, if you saw obviously the big win with the championship this year, the parade downtown, the whole town came out. And so we just love the fact that Montana State is so supported and the students are so cared for. And then one more thing I'll say, in living here and now seeing that small town feel, or that personal feel, is that what Matt just said is true. He cares for the students. He takes care of the students. He is the real deal. It's not just words in a webinar. And that's what you get at Montana State, this care for your students.
Thank you. I'm so glad that you guys have had that experience. Funny enough, that reminds me of a different question that we got in the chat. This one made me giggle a little bit. I would love for maybe Brad to talk about this a little bit. Someone shared that their student absolutely loves Bozeman, but as a parent, they're a little concerned that maybe they love Bozeman just as much as they love MSU. And so they're a little concerned. Did any of your students struggle to focus on school, being in an area where there's so many amazing things to do and such a great community?
It's a great question and a fair one. Fletcher, our sophomore is the youngest of three. So we have two other kids who went to school in South Bend, Indiana. Doesn't have nearly like the natural distractions that Bozeman has, but I think my point is every college has lots of distractions. The kids have to identify their discipline, and my kids all struggled with finding the right balance. But I have to say, if my kid's going to be distracted and it means he's out on the river, going for a hike, or taking in a powder day, it's probably not the worst distraction in the world. So my impression is most of the kids figure it out pretty easily.
Thank you. Let's find another good one. Maybe let's move over to Leslie then. Would you be comfortable sharing with us how accessible did you feel that professors were on our campus, both inside and outside of the classroom?
So
Especially
I
if the
know
students
my
are concerned
kids.
about a large course. Sorry.
Oh yeah, no. So I know my kids have found their professors extremely accessible, and I know they got a really great piece of information at one of the orientations. I have 4 kids total, so one was always go talk to your professor right away, and professors have office hours for reasons. They make themselves available for a reason, and they really are a good key to success, because once you've kind of built a relationship with a professor, they can answer questions if you have a problem come up. And then I know for my kids, or a couple of my kids, will need recommendations down the line for medical school, dental school. So to start building relationships right away, it seems like some of the lectures will seem big, but once you go in and meet with a professor and make it personal, it's great. And all the professors my kids have met have found that. So
Great, thank you. I'm gonna segue back to Brad for a minute then. In what ways have you seen your students' academic workload change, mainly when we're considering transitioning from high school onwards to college then?
It was a big transition for our youngest, and I think he was one of those students in high school that didn't have to work all that hard, and he could do well. Um, and he went and met with Dean Matt and one of his professors midway through freshman year when he was struggling in one of his really hard quant classes. And the professor was great and just said, "Hey, I see that you've come to all your class. Just tell me about your study habits." And Fletcher said, "Well, I read the chapters the night before the exam and I show up." And he's like, "All right, it probably worked for you in high school, but it's not going to work in college." And so the school helped him develop new study habits and, kind of work through the executive functioning of a heavier workload. And he struggled through that class and ended up getting a decent grade. So it was a great experience for him to go through that. But it's real, right? It's a transition.
Great. No, that's a great point. I guess another thing to think of, I've gotten a lot of questions from parents about, first off, of course, that transition, but also wondering how their students balance, the fun things, working, research, those other opportunities. Susan, have your students worked while they're on campus? How do you find that they experience, navigating that balance of time with work,
Yeah.
academics, all the other fun things that come with life?
Of course, you got to have a balance. We encouraged Wyatt to get a job, and so during the freshman year, he got a job at Jimmy John's. It was right across from his dorm. He was in South Hedges, so it was super close. Found a schedule that worked for him, just 2 nights a week. He could go work a couple hours, have something to focus on. And I think that was a really good thing, even in the winter when it gets dark pretty early. It's nice to have a focus and have them have something. And then for the summer, it was great because he's ag business. They had the ag business part of the university has a whole site where companies, ranches, things can post job postings. And so I think October of his freshman year, he found a posting for a ranch called Alpine Falls Ranch. In Superior, he was able to apply. He did a ton of interviews, got the job, and worked there last summer and is going back again this summer. So Montana State has given him some really great opportunities to start exploring some of his passions, which has been fun.
Yeah, just since you mentioned it, I'm going to pick on you again. Do you have any tips and tricks for parents who are maybe coming from warmer climates and are a little concerned about how their student or kid might transition to the Montana weather?
Definitely. Yeah, we came from a no major jacket climate. And I have to say, I was more worried about the winter than Wyatt was. Wyatt was like, "Mom, it's not that big a deal." So we got him the jackets, we got him the Carhartt, we got him the down jacket. We got it. We talked about boots. I was like, "Do you need boots?" And literally he went around, I think all winter last year in his Converse, in his light just sweatshirt was his jacket, his hoodie. So I just realized that it was a bigger stressor for me than it was for him. And that may be more true of boys than of girls, but I have a 17-year-old. She doesn't really wear a jacket either, and it gets cold here. So my advice would be, if you're worried about the winter, if you're worried about the cold, just let them get here and figure it out, and what people wear and what they think they need.
why are they
and
barking so much?
don't stress about it too much. The only other thing I would say, the hardest part probably about the winter, was the darkness for him early, and just it getting dark early. And so he just had to adjust his schedule to get out and have activities in the evening, go to the gym after 5 o'clock, do something, so that he wasn't just feeling stuck inside for a long period of time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I'd
Yeah.
love to stay a little bit on this topic of kind of that campus, the community. Leslie, would you maybe mind addressing? I had a parent ask, their student is a little nervous about having a roommate for the first time. Do you have any advice you can offer from a parent's perspective on navigating that first time roommate relationship?
I do. And sorry for my dogs barking. Oh my gosh.
Hey, we're dog people here.
Okay, that is true. Okay,
We're
so
the cats.
yes. So like I said, I have 4 college kids. All were nervous about the roommate. 3 of the 4 went in with the college selection process. And my whole thing was to let them know that it's okay not to be best friends with your roommate. The most important thing is that you coexist and you respect each other's space. You respect the rules. But if they do develop a friendship, that's great. But the best advice I can say is just to make sure that they can coexist and be friendly and respectful. And I think it's a great time in their life where they are going to have challenges and they may ask you for advice, but it's really the kind of thing that they can work through with their roommate on their own. I always kind of think it's one of the big first adult things because a lot of them have had their own bedrooms, they've had their own space. So that's my best advice for roommates. All my kids did great with their first year roommates. Some got along better than others, but it works out in the end. And obviously, if there's other more serious things, it's okay for parents to get involved. But generally, the kids will work it out.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it. It really is such a kind of a formative learning experience. I had that experience when I was a freshman here at MSU. It worked out great. I loved my time living in the residence halls. But also, just to your other point, of course, if there ever is anything serious that needs to be addressed, we do have a really great team in the Office of University Student Housing. They're all here to support you. We have RAs available. They help with mediation, and students will have that strong support. Kind of staying on that note, though, I know Dean Caires did a great job addressing campus safety and how much of a priority that is for us here. But Brad, would you mind talking a bit about, just from a parent's perspective, how you have felt your son's experience has been here?
Sure. I think it's just a college campus environment, and there are, people traveling. So I would always advise the kids to be aware, to pay attention. Bozeman feels like an incredibly safe place. I haven't heard of my son experiencing anything that was ever threatening or worrisome. But I would just always caution parents to recognize, it's kids, it's a college town, and have a buddy system, pay attention. The kids do a lot in the apps, sharing location, and I think they partner well to keep an eye out on each other. But using good judgment helps, and having some conversations with the kids about that, I think is smart. So that's, yeah.
Yeah, great. Thank you. All right, we're going to swing it back to Susan for a minute. What are some key ways that you found your parenting style has adjusted since your student has left for college?
Oh, yes. Well, I'm a communications coach, so I had to follow my own advice to a lot of my clients, which is really had to shift from that command and control. And I don't think we had that as much in high school, but in college, it's really shifting from that to a consulting mindset, which is asking a lot of questions, not trying to give advice unless they want it, asking if they want advice. Do you want some advice? You want to know my perspective? Listening, trying to understand, and a lot of times paraphrasing back. It sounds like that's been a really big challenge. When they feel like you're on their side, I think first they're more willing to talk to you, and that's most important. You want to keep the line of communication open with your student. And then second, when they feel like they have to work through it themselves, a lot of times they're more on board with the solution because they've had to come up with it. So they're not being told what to do. They have to figure out what to do on their own. And then the last thing is just the cadence of communication. I think as a parent, we often want to talk to our kids a lot more. I have 2 boys in college. Wyatt's at Montana State, another one's at another college, and one wants to talk to me every other day. And Wyatt's once a week, he's good. So we just find a time, we get a cadence, we try to connect, and I respect his privacy as much as I can, while also texting every once in a while and just checking in. How are you? What's going on? You need anything? And so that it seems to work well, understanding their styles and not being too pushy, let them somewhat direct what they need.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Let's go back to Leslie for a moment. Have your students had any experience with internships, research, or hands-on roles here at MSU, and would be happy to share any with us?
They actually both have. So my son Ben, who is the engineer, um, he right away got involved in a professional group on campus. And then through that, he ended up meeting a local business a Montana firm owner. And he was part of the group that Ben was in. And so it was just kind of a nice, this man would come to the meetings, and Ben ended up subsequently getting a job with this firm. And all of this kind of worked through the engineering department. I mean, there was so much information out there for him to get. And then he was also his freshman year, and this kind of goes back to meeting your professors. He was asked his freshman year to be part of a research project. So he did that. And then he was also a TA for a couple of his engineering classes. So he had a really well-rounded, I think, kind of well-rounded thing to add to his resume between the research, the TA, the professional group. And then my daughter, she is pre-med, and the school has a great, it's called the Health Professions Advising. And they really help these kids in every aspect of a pre-health career, from advice to resume writing to finding jobs to making connections. And she's utilized that. And then through that, she's gotten a job at the hospital where she's a patient care technician. She's also been involved in research, which my son's research was actually a paid position. Grace took research credits towards her degree. And then she has also been a student assistant for anatomy labs. And one plug I will give to MSU is they are one of not very many universities in the country that use real cadavers in their labs. If any of you out there have pre-health students. So she's been a student assistant in the labs. So both kids have had amazing internship opportunities, research opportunities to be in and kind of teach in a classroom. And I feel like that was really a big part of why we came, was because we had heard these things, and then they all came to fruition for both kids. So, if kids seek things like that out, they will absolutely find them. And it really is amazing. And my son also had, through the engineering department, had an internship with Montana Department of Transportation. So that was another thing. So.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing. That is
Yeah.
such great involvement. Well, we're getting pretty close to 7. I would love to wrap up with just one final question for all of you guys. And would you please share what about your students' journey or experience has made you the most proud? Let's just go back in our first order. We can start off with Brad, then to Leslie, and then Susan to wrap us up.
Oh, it's probably a simple example, but we came to visit this fall for Parents Weekend, and our son moved off campus living with 3 of his friends. And they invited the parents and 5 or 6 of their guy friends and 10 of their girlfriends over for kind of a big dinner cookout. And we just had the best time. So, getting to see how he's engaged in the community, building a really strong social fabric, their interest, getting to know us, whether it was the parents or the kids, was the best. So that was a, early proud moment for us.
For me, I'd say, since my kids are kind of farther along, I have a graduate and then a senior. For Ben, I think it was just watching his whole career kind of come together. From literally the first day he started at Montana State, he met someone an RA in the bathroom and said, "You need to come to this professional engineering group." And Ben did. And from that, every decision he made that led him to his career, which is a civil engineer in Bozeman. And then with Grace, just watching her as a senior, as a pre-med student, all the opportunities she's been given and taken. And then she'll graduate in May and stay in Bozeman while she prepares to apply to medical school. But just, again, seeing how everything they took advantage of that the school offered, and then kind of where it led them to, made me really proud.
And I would say mine's similar, Leslie. It's just watching Wyatt go into a field that he had no exposure to before. So ag business was not something he grew up with. It's not something he knew. and watching him thrive, seeing him, he has a job right now at a goat farm nearby, like close by. He's birthing baby goats in the like late at night. And so he's just getting to not only learn about this, but experience it here. And so that has just been really fun to watch, like you said, all of that start to grow and come to fruition.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, guys. It is 7 o'clock on the dot, so I know your time is valuable. I wanted to say we appreciate so much everything that you guys do to support your students, to support our future Bobcat parents and family members. Dean Caires, thank you so much for your help with tonight's webinar. And to all of you future Bobcat parents and family members out there, we are so excited to welcome your students to campus next fall. Please do not be strangers. Please keep in touch. If you have any questions, the Office of Admissions is more than happy to give you guys a hand. This is our contact info up on the screen right now. Just so you guys know, this webinar was recorded and we will be posting it to our Office of Admissions YouTube page too.